A machine gunner leads a squad of soldiers. In 3 days, blocked 3,000 Japanese soldiers several charges. He is the machine gun god, John Basilone. How did he achieve such legendary results? And why did he choose to return to the battlefield after gaining honor? This begins with a poor Italian tailor. In 1903, a poor Italian tailor immigrated to America, married a woman with a standalone villa locally, and had 10 children. Among them, 9 were very quiet. Only the 6th kept causing trouble outside. The 6th child is John Basilone. At 7, he was very adventurous. Imagine himself as a Western cowboy. Jumped into the cattle pen, almost got killed by a bull. At 10, he fought 2 tough guys on the street, then got a pair of panda eyes from the tough guys. He also stole tomatoes from the neighbor, threw them on the head of a girl he liked. In 1931, 15-year-old Basilone was 1.75 meters tall and muscular. Because he could eat and drink too much, he became the famous big eater of the town. At this time, it was the Great Depression in America. Basilone had worked as a golf caddy. He also worked as a small worker at a laundry. But the money he earned simply could not support himself. He thought a good place. There, strong people were needed, and meals were plentiful. In June 1934, 17-year-old Basilone officially became a new recruit in America. The first thing the company commander said to him was, "New recruit, please take your stupid grin on your face and go to the kitchen to peel potatoes for a week." No one could imagine that this simple-looking recruit would one day become a nightmare for the Japanese. Basilone served for 3 years in Manila, Philippines, and honed his shooting skills. He was especially proficient with the machine gun. He also participated in boxing matches in his spare time and became the boxing champion of the U.S. troops in the Philippines. 3 years later, after his service ended, Basilone returned to America. He tattooed a sharp sword on his left arm. He returned again to his old job as a golf caddy. But this time his clients were mainly Japanese businessmen. One day Basilone suddenly ran home. He told his father he wanted to enlist again, because our country is heading towards war. His father was surprised and asked him who would fight the U.S. Basilone vowed it would be the Japanese. July 1940. The shadow of World War had already swept half the globe. Basilone chose to enlist again. This soldier with military experience and strength was listed in the Marine Corps Machine Gun Unit. After joining the Marine Corps, he remained the boxing champion of the unit. He had never lost an inter-service and weight class boxing matches. Japanese officer Yamamoto Isoroku issued the plan to attack Pearl Harbor. 183 planes took off from 6 aircraft carriers. Then 168 planes launched again to bomb Pearl Harbor. This attack cost Japan only 29 planes and 2 submarines. But it damaged or sank 8 U.S. battleships, 2 cruisers, 3 destroyers, and 188 aircraft. The news reached the United States, causing nationwide outrage, as President Roosevelt had previously promised not to initiate any wars during his term. An angry speech in Congress. The United States and Japan were already at war. The following year, Basilone boarded a transport ship heading to Guadalcanal. Guadalcanal is the second largest island of the Solomon Islands. 3,000 Japanese troops were deployed on the island. There was also a military airport that was already mostly completed. At this time, the United States only had a 19th century nautical map of Guadalcanal. The main landing force, the 1st Marine Division, had 3 regiments. The 1st Regiment was still on the way across the Pacific. The 5th Regiment had just arrived, and the soldiers were constantly vomiting. The 7th Regiment, where Basilone was almost all new recruits. On the morning of August 7th, 1942, taking advantage of bad weather, the landing boats quietly approached. Colonel Hunter, the commander of the 5th Regiment, shouted and rushed out of the landing craft. A dramatic scene unfolded. The Japanese troops, seeing the overwhelming force, actually turned and fled. The U.S. forces landed successfully without firing a shot, then easily occupied Guadalcanal. After occupation discovered, the so-called 3,000 Japanese soldiers, among them 2,700 people, were Korean laborers. Here only 240 people's guard team. Landing went smoothly, but also exposed many problems. For example, the commander charged ahead, and some new soldiers sunbathed on the rear beach. There were also some soldiers carrying rifles to the woods to hunt birds for barbecue. The first thing Basilone did after landing was to rectify military discipline. He made every soldier dig bomb shelters and required them to learn to assemble machine guns blindfolded to deal with possible night battles. Once Basilone's team was sent to ambush a small Japanese troop, the soldiers fired a burst of machine guns, and all Japanese soldiers fell. Everyone celebrated joyfully. Only Basilone shot at the fallen Japanese soldiers. A comrade said, "Brother, why waste bullets on the dead?" Just after saying this, a Japanese soldier shouted, "Long live," and sprang up from the ground, was shot dead by Basilone. In fact, playing dead is a Japanese soldier's common trick. Even truly injured Japanese soldiers would pretend to surrender, begging you to rescue them. If they do call the medic, the Japanese soldiers will pull the grenade immediately. In October, the American military has stationed 23,000 people in the Guadalcanal area. The Japanese side sent a total of 40,000 troops. The 7th Regiment, where Basilone is located, is responsible for defending Henderson Field. The intelligence received shows that on October 22nd, there will be a Japanese army raid. On this day, all the soldiers in the regiment did not close their eyes but did not wait for the Japanese army. At first, the American military thought the intelligence was false. In fact, the Japanese army's supply encountered problems. The Japanese army worried that transport ships would be intercepted by the American army. In the past 2 months, taking advantage of the night, they secretly transported soldiers by destroyer. Cruising speed of 40 knots, 900 people daily. The soldiers' problems were solved, but supplies could not keep up. Many Japanese soldiers had already entered the hunting and gathering era. The dead from illness were also not a few. Later, the Japanese army thought of a supply method. They stuffed food and medicine in iron barrels and strung them together with iron chains, using the ocean's tides to transport supplies to Guadalcanal. 1,500 iron barrels night sailing to Guadalcanal. As a result, only 300 iron barrels reached Guadalcanal Beach. This was also the only success of chain transport. On the night of December 24th, the 2nd Division Commander Murayama Masao, with 7,000 soldiers, after 12 days of hard trekking, carved out a 24-kilometer-long trail in the jungle. He shouted, and the soldiers rushed towards the U.S. defense lines. The phone rang at the U.S. position south of the airport. Basilone picked up the phone. A sentry on the other end shouted in panic, "The Japanese are coming in droves, countless." Suddenly a muffled sound. The soldiers went silent. The battle broke out in the early hours of the 25th. The silent jungle was filled with shouts of killing. In the darkness flashed the muzzle flames of machine guns and the cold light of samurai swords. The 7th Regiment, where Basilone was in Murayama Masao's attack position. Murayama Masao appointed Major General Nasumio as the left wing, leading 3,000 soldiers specifically to charge at Basilone's machine gun team. Basilone also adopted a series of tactics. He had his 15 soldiers split into 2 machine gun positions. Each position had 2 machine guns. One machine gun fired while the other could reload and cool down. He instructed the soldiers to the enemy within 30 meters to ensure kill rate. The Japanese army continuously rushed out from the jungle path. Every time they gathered 15 to 20 people, they had to charge. Otherwise, they would become live targets for Basilone due to concentrated numbers. Most of these soldiers came from Sendai, Japan. At that time, Sendai's poor mountains and rivers produced extremely fierce soldiers. They dared to confront machine guns with samurai swords. During the charge, they would shout loudly. They were called the Sendai Screaming Legion. The machine guns kept spitting fire. In just 30 minutes, more than 200 Japanese corpses were left in front of the position. The 16th Regiment under Nasakuni U.S. suffered a 70% casualty rate, and the regiment commander, Colonel Hiroyasu, was also killed. Angry, Nasakuni U reorganized the 29th Company to charge again. This time, they also brought grenades and mortars. While Basilone was operating the machine gun on the left, he suddenly heard a loud bang from the right position. The machine gun fire also stopped. An injured soldier crawled over, telling him that both machine guns on the right had been destroyed. Basilone angrily scolded and directly picked up the machine gun from the tripod, rushing to the right flank. The hot barrel instantly burned his left hand. He saw that his 5 comrades had already died. Ignoring the sorrow, he shouted and used the machine gun to sweep and repel a wave of attacks from the Japanese. He checked the 2 damaged machine guns. One was completely destroyed, the other could still be repaired. He dismantled parts from the destroyed machine gun, fixed the other machine gun. Conditions on the battlefield were limited, no lighting. Everything he did was in the dark. Not only that, while Basilone was repairing the gun, a Japanese soldier attacked him from behind with a katana. As a result, Basilone shot him down with his pistol. He also solved several Japanese soldiers in close combat with a dagger and machete. At 3 a.m., the Japanese were still attacking. Basilone did not know how many enemies were left. Their water bottles had been shot through. The machine gun barrel was already glowing red. Ammunition was also running low. He had the soldiers cool the machine gun with urine. He crawled over 100 meters under the hail of bullets to collect ammunition. On the way, he also saw a shocking scene. The Japanese army actually dragged away the remains of their compatriots and piled them together as a cover to shield their charge. When he returned, originally 2 of the 3 machine guns were destroyed. Basilone once again felt in the dark to dismantle parts. He assembled the 2 broken machine guns into a good gun, ensuring both flanks had continuous fire output. The battle lasted from the evening of the 24th to the 26th. Basilone's left hand, burned by the machine gun, already showed bone. He hadn't slept or eaten for 72 hours. Only 2 of the 15 comrades were still alive. On the evening of the 26th, they finally killed the 29th Regiment commander leading the charge. Then Major General Nisukio was also shot dead by Company C. Only Colonel Nakuma of the 4th Regiment fled. The Japanese army's attack grew weaker, and dawn gradually approached. The sight was a scene of unimaginable despair. Hundreds of corpses lay around the position. There were shell casings, metal fragments, and remains everywhere. This battle for Henderson Field, the Japanese army was killed over 3,000. The U.S. Army only had 80 casualties. The loss ratio reached 37.5 to 1. The Japanese 2nd Division, as one of the most elite armored divisions, was completely destroyed. Commander Murayama Masao escaped on a destroyer. All colonels and above were killed. In the entire World War II, this is also an extremely rare record. In this battle, Baron fired a total of 26,000 machine gun bullets. He counted 38 dead Japanese soldiers on the battlefield. This number was reported back home frantically. It was mistakenly reported that he killed 38 enemies. But according to Colonel Pulu of the 7th Regiment's recollection, near Baseron's team's position, there were a total of 900 Japanese corpses. No one knew how many enemies he actually killed in the dark of night. Even Baron himself did not know. But this number was certainly far more than 38. After the battle ended, Baron and his comrades who participated in the battle were asked to go to the rear for a vacation. They boarded a transport ship. Go to Melbourne, Australia. There are beaches and playgrounds, golf courses and bars. Soldiers on vacation start to pursue local girls. Basilone also often dates local girls with his handsome appearance. A few weeks later, an Australian troop returns from war. But the girls prefer to date American soldiers. American soldiers not only have higher salaries, but also bring cigarettes and delicious food. In the tavern, soldiers from both countries often clash. One night, Basilone had a conflict with an Australian soldier. After the Australian soldier attacked, Basilone ended the dispute with one punch. Because American and Australian soldiers frequently conflict locally, an American general decided to ease the situation with a large party and provided beer for all soldiers attending the party. He was also worried about conflicts breaking out at the party, so all the beer cups were replaced with paper cups. But fortunately, the party was successful. One day, half a year later, a special parade was held at the military base. Strangely, everyone knew this news. Only Basilone did not receive the notice. On the day of the parade, Basilone thought he was late. He saw everyone lined up neatly. Even a general was present. Just when Basilone thought the general would be angry, the general suddenly raised his right hand and saluted him. Then he took the megaphone and announced to the army, Sergeant John Basilone was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his bravery and determination in battle. The Congressional Medal of Honor is the highest military medal in the United States, and Basilone was the first Marine to receive this medal in World War II. After the general put the medal on Basilone, he asked him how it felt. Basilone, tearfully, said, "This medal only belongs to a small part of me." Many comrades who should have had the medal were left forever on Guadalcanal. After the awards ceremony, Basilone was asked to return to the United States to participate in war speeches nationwide. Along with Hollywood stars, he called on the American people to buy war bonds. Throughout World War II, the U.S. Treasury issued a total of 8 series of bonds, specially used for expenditure war expenses. More than 85 million people participated in purchases, raised $185.7 billion. But soon Basilone got tired of this deification movement. In his view, he was just an ordinary soldier. Comrades were still fighting the Japanese army on harsh islands. He wanted to return to his comrades. So he applied to return to the troops. But the high command rejected his request, saying he could play the greatest role domestically. They wanted to give him some money and arrange a position as a new recruit instructor in the homeland. But all were refused by Basilone. After his repeated requests, the American high level agreed to let him enlist. During this period, Basilone married Sergeant Raina Ritchie on July 10, 1944, and continued training to prepare for island combat. On February 19, 1945, as a machine gun team commander, Basilone led the team to land on Iwo Jima. Upon landing, they immediately engaged in battle with the Japanese army. There were no cover on the beach. Scattered everywhere were damaged vehicles, equipment, and dead soldiers. Surviving soldiers had to burrow into the sand. Basilone began to direct and coordinate the soldiers' positions. Under his command, they successfully destroyed a Japanese bunker. His squad secured a foothold, and he personally ran to the beach, awakening many soldiers behind him who dared to break through. Then Basilone arrived at the airport, ignoring the fierce artillery fire from the Japanese. He directed tanks to cross the minefield. He was hit by a shell as he moved along the edge of the airport. The shell fell right at his feet. 30 minutes later, Basilone died from his injuries, at only 28 years old. Due to his heroic performance in the Battle of Iwo Jima, Basilone was posthumously awarded the Navy Cross, becoming the only soldier to receive both the Medal of Honor and the Navy Cross. On August 6, 1945, the United States dropped the first atomic bomb on Hiroshima. 2 days later, the second fell on Nagasaki. Then Japan announced its unconditional surrender. Basilone was first buried on Iwo Jima. After the victory of the war, he was relocated to Arlington National Cemetery. 15,000 people attended his funeral. He became famous for defending the airport, also sacrificed for attacking an airport. If he seemed like a packaged hero before returning to the battlefield, but after having honor and wealth in Basilone, still willing to return to the battlefield until sacrifice. This must be respected. This is all the content of this video. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel.